Hey guys, kinggath here with Bethesda Mod School. Now, no matter what your experience is, if you do not have to know how to animate to watch this video. So I'm sure some of you saw the title and are probably worried this is gonna be useful to you, but it will be. The goal of this animation series is not going to cover anything regarding actual animation, but instead is going to be talking about how you can take advantage of existing animation resources and get them into Fallout 4. Now, I apologize, this intro is going to be a little long because I have some exciting information to share and I have to thank a few people. So, first up, a big thanks to Colonel's Egg. He is a mod author who helped me figure this stuff out. He had contacted me at some point asking if he could help in any way, and I pointed out the fact that there have been virtually no animations released in new furniture for settlers, and I thought that was a disappointment because I thought that was a place where we could see some great new variety in workshop objects and some settlements, plots, etc. And also for things like machinima or for dialogue scenes in mod quests, things like that. And he figured out a big workflow for that. He used a lot of the information that was available on various tutorials and combined it all together in a simple format I was able to digest quickly. And once I gathered all that together, I then showed that and a lot of information that was available already from other creators to Sebo, who is animating for the Sim Settlements team, and he is the creator of the Another Brick in the Wall Sim Settlements add-on pack, for those of you who are familiar with it. He took that information, simplified it even further, helped me to further understand it, and then he dialed it to 11 by doing what I'm going to talk about next. So there was a program, a website company called Maximo, and it got purchased by Adobe. But the purpose of this company, or this goal, was to provide game-ready animations that were easy to use for animators. So the idea was to solve a lot of the common animation needs in gaming and provide those really high-quality, motion-captured, nice-looking animations at a reasonable price. Well, Adobe has since made that program free. So you just create a login for their site. You can go on, upload a skeleton rig, and download their motion-capped animations for use in your projects, which is freaking amazing. Now, I am sure that they have some sort of license requirement for business use and whatnot, but for the sake of free projects like modding, it's totally legit for us to use them. Well, Sebo took that information and automated a system to take the Fallout 4 skeleton rig and download and convert all of the animations Maximo offers and convert them to a usable Fallout 4 format. So we're including those today as a free resource in the Bethesda Mod School resource mod. We want you guys to go nuts with this, spread the word around the mod community, around the machinima community, so you guys can start using those. And I've even set up a mod that has all of these available as idols so that they can be used from the console. So those of you guys who are doing machinima work, you don't have to do anything. You can just download that resource and start using it right now, and you suddenly got access to thousands more idols. So all those idols are available for you guys to play with. On top of that, Bethesda themselves have provided tons of furniture idols that have never been used, like this one in front of me. And you can actually, it turns out, use virtually any animation in the game that you've seen and turn it into a furniture idol, or turn it into an idol that you can play at any point in the game, like during a dialogue scene or just from a console command or whatever you want. So basically, my goal with this animation series is to teach you all the different ways you can make use of the animations, how you set them up in different ways in the creation kit, and eventually I'll show you how to export things from 3ds Max. So if you find animations out in the world, or if you happen to be an animator, you'll be able to take that knowledge and get us even more animations. So I'm very, very excited for this series. Again, it does not require any animation experience. The assumption is there's so many animation resources out there in the world that we can just take those and repurpose them for Fallout 4 modding. So please spread the word again about this Maximo set of animations in the Bethesda Mod School resources, and let's make some furniture so we can get cooler Sim Settlements plots and workshop objects out in the community. So as you can see here, we got a guy drinking from the toilet. There's clipping and things. These are the types of things that you'll have to just be careful of with the animations you choose and the models you use. Like, for example, this would looks terrible in this toilet because it's clipping, but would probably look great in like a bathtub model. So there's definitely great ways we could use this drink animation. But as you can see, they still are acting as a shopkeeper. They're set up as a bartender. No, we're not buying from a guy drinking out of a toilet. But it all works totally normally, just like any other animation. And so some of this information, as it was taught to me, just started to just completely changed my view of the way animation works and made it way less intimidating. So now let's head into the creation kit. I'm going to show you how to set up this exactly. So this is obviously going to require that you've gone through my previous Bethesda Mod School tutorials to get up to the point where you understand how to make furniture objects. So if you haven't yet, go check those out, then come back to this and you'll be able to follow along with the rest of the steps, because I'm just going to take that mod and build on it and add the animation spots, which is actually shockingly easy to do. So let's head into the creation kit now. All right, so actually before we get into the creation kit, I'm going to suggest everybody do one thing, and that is to take the resources from the Maximo animation previews that are in the Bethesda Mod School Nexus thing, is grab these files and extract them directly into your Fallout 4 data directory so that they end up under meshes, actors, character, animations, and in previews, because all of these right here, these are going to be extra animations you can choose from, and so this will just give you one more thing you can play around with while we're going through these steps. And especially because I have them set up all that way, you're going to see something while I go through the stuff in the creation kit that would be confusing without this. So these do have to be loose in order to do the previews. I'm not sure why, because Bethesda's don't have to be, but this seems to be the case. I'm sure it's just some little step I'm overlooking. So if you happen to know why, then definitely let me know in the comments, and I will update some, either the video or put a note in the pinned on there so that people can find that information. But okay, so once you've got that done, you should, under here, you should have this giant folder full of these animations. What we're going to do first when we go on to set up furniture is we need to figure out what animation we're going to use. So the easiest way to do that is to come onto the Actors tab with your plugin loaded. And you can see here I've got 101 test plugin loaded. This would have been the last plugin we created in the creation kit set, or creation kit tutorials. I think we left off, the last thing we did with this particular mod with the outhouse is we added power to it and snap points and things like that. So it's been the same mod. I just keep building on it, and we're gonna load that up, and we're gonna right click on any humanoid NPC. So I know Abbott happens to be one, which is the very first one that's listed by default, and we're gonna right click on him and hit preview. And then down here, and we can spin him around with the left mouse button. Light is on. I think if we have it clicked and then we press the A key on the A hotkey, it'll take away the lighting so he stands out. But he'll look a little nicer with some faux lighting. But we're going to turn that off. And if you scroll down here under Havoc Anim, there's a whole bunch of different animations, and you can see a lot of them are, there's like a shorthand, like one-handed melee. And one thing that's unfortunate is that by default, not all of Bethesda's animations show up under this. And I'll do another tutorial at some point to show you how to set up more of Bethesda's animations as previewable, because it does make it a lot easier when you're trying to pick out what animations you want to use. But if you scroll down far enough, you're going to find those anim previews that I just had you extract, and you'll see all these different animations provided to us by Maximo. And a lot of them are going to be, you can see they're very game focused. So you've got things like people turning with their hands held out as if they're holding a gun, and those gun holding, their hands probably don't line up perfectly with Fallout 4 guns, so that's something to be aware of. And there's quite a lot of that type of thing. But then there's all sorts of different things like fighting, and it's all motion captured, so it all looks pretty good. Now it probably doesn't fully match up with Fallout 4 style, but you know what, beggars can't be choosers here. It's still very solid animation. Like I think this roundhouse kick looks great. I guess I don't know if that's considered a roundhouse. I don't know enough. I guess that's what it's labeled. I don't know enough about martial arts to say one way or the other. Anyway, you've got a lot of really high quality animations to choose from, and so I could see something like this being used. You set up like a punching bag that they could sit there and just kick on repeat, and it has a nice loop to it. It would look great as a furniture. So there's all sorts of crazy stuff we could do with this, and I'm sure any of you who've designed a Sim Settlements anim plot, your mind is spinning right now with the possibilities, knowing that we can have multiple animation markers in a plot. So again, so excited to see what everybody does with this. But basically what you're going to do is find an animation you want to use, and then we'll go from there. So I found that Bethesda had quite a few under the furniture section that they never used. So we're going to scroll down here. It's all alphabetical for the most part. If we go down to furniture here, I think I found it under furniture water. Here we go. So I found this little treasure here. And so there's a lot like this that Bethesda never made use of. So I definitely would highly recommend digging through here. And then once I get to the tutorial about idols, there's a good chance that I just make another resource where all of Bethesda's animations are set up in a preview system. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So for now, this is the one we're going to set up just because that is what I showed you at the beginning. But obviously you could use any of those preview ones as well. So what you do once you find the one you want to use is you're going to look for this full file path and name. Now, one thing to note is that in the preview, it always shows HKT, but the actual animation files are HKX. I don't know why that is, but it is what it is. There's other things like that in the creation kit. For example, you'll often see that the sound file will show, like sound files will show XWM even if you used a WAV file. I think it's just they've got it hard coded to show a certain format. So we're going to go in, and this is going to be another thing that you're going to really want to do when you get into animation stuff. But in general, it's just helpful if you're going to be going through my guides. I covered this in an old video, so I'm not going to walk you through the steps, but I will put in the comments, or hopefully we will remember to put in the comments or a link in the video here of the name of the video. But we have covered how you extract all of the Fallout 4 assets. You can extract all the BA2 files. So if you haven't seen those guides, go check out some of my tool guides. It's going to be in one of those videos. I don't remember which one, but it will show you how to extract all of the Fallout 4 files. So I have them all extracted under a folder I labeled FO4 Unpacked. One of the keys to doing a proper unpacking is to make sure you create a data folder and that everything is underneath that. And the benefit of that is that you can actually point to files within here, and the creation kit knows to do it relative to data, so that way it doesn't matter if it's outside of your Fallout 4 directory, which is pretty huge. So what we want to do here is we want to find this particular animation. Now these are all going to end up under meshes, and then I believe, and I didn't write this down, so bear with me while I find it again. It should be meshes, actors, and then I believe it's under character, and then animations is where all this should be. And let's see if I am correct here. And then this particular one, okay, yep, that's correct. Okay, then we have got to go under, we got to find the full path here. So in this case, it's going to be under furniture. And then we scroll down, we go to water. Where are we at here? Water. And we're going to grab, now I have these, I actually converted these to XML as well. There's a piece of software out there that converts HKX files into XML so that you can edit them and then you can turn it back. And that is available in the Fallout 4 Animators Toolkit, available on Nexus. I'm not going to cover how to do that. It's not particularly useful for most people. It's pretty complex, but that is why you see these files. If you just did an extraction, you will not have these XML files. So we're going to grab this drinkloop.hkx. This is the one we see here. That's the one we want to use. So then what we're going to do is we're going to head in, and pardon my gigantic folder mess here, but we're going to head into meshes, actors, and character, and then animations. And this is where you're going to stash your animations. Now you don't actually have to place them here. There's not a requirement for this directory for this particular use for the furniture. For other types of animation, such as to be able to use them in the preview, they do have to be in this subfolder. If they're not there, the CK won't see them for preview animations, which is probably why a lot of their animations aren't previewable. I don't know why this is, but I've seen proven examples that for furniture type, they don't have to be under this directory. They can be anywhere under meshes, but I'm going to advise you always put them in this directory just for the sake of making sure that your animations are maximally useful. Now, if you get into animating other NPCs at some point, then you'll want to put them in an appropriate directory. But if you get that advanced, I'm sure you can figure out the rest of this stuff. I created a file called 101 test rank that I put it in already. And what you want to do is paste it in, and you're going to rename it to pose_a_idle1. And so I've already done that here, so I can just delete that. And so you'll then have your pose a idle one, which is used by default by what's called the furniture behavior. Now, what the behaviors basically do is define a series of these types of files and various events that will trigger based on game logic to make an animation play. That's all you need to know about them. Now, we cannot create custom behaviors for Fallout 4 as far as I know. I think there are a few teams who have cracked that, but it's not something most of us are going to be able to do. I'm probably never going to learn it because it's just beyond the scope of what I'll generally need for Fallout 4 modding. So then there's two other HKX files that will not be here for you if you did this. And just to clarify, you don't have to create a folder called 101 test rank, but whatever you do, whenever you're setting up a new furniture animation, you should always make sure you create yourself a unique folder in here for that particular animation. It's very important. So I've got my unique folder here, and you're going to end up in yours. You're just going to have this pose a idle one that you just copied and renamed to that. So then you need to get these enter from stand and exit to stand. Now, what those are going to be the transition animation from the NPC standing still to actually entering into this pose. Now, obviously, to get directly into this pose, you would need a custom animated thing. But what I find, it is acceptable to use some that are close and just allow the engine to interpolate the rest of it. So it won't be perfect if you were to watch them enter and exit, you'll get some jerkiness. But what I find is you just have to find something that's similar, something that gets them close to that position. So for example, we might look at something like sit kneeling, things like that. So the best spot to find, and in fact, the only spot to find these is going to be under the furniture section. So you can see if we have this thing extracted, you can see all these different animations. And again, you could preview them, but not all of them are previewable, but you'll probably recognize a lot of them. And the names are pretty telling about which ones you should be using for this thing. So this is going to be one of those situations where your best bet is to just do a lot of trial and error and you'll find something that looks good. But if you check out in these folders in this animation furniture and you go into some of these, and I think kneel is going to be pretty close. Now I think the kneeling by default goes to 2 knees. And like I said, there'll be some jerkiness when the character they'll kneel down and then they'll have to spring into this position. But again, I think just for the fact that we suddenly get access to all these different animations, and 99% of the time you or your players of your mods are never going to be watching when this occurs anyway, outside of maybe the first time when you're excited to see it. Most of the time you're going to roll into your settlement and they're already going to be using it. And for the sake of things like doing machinima work or scenes and dialogue, you don't actually need this furniture stuff anyway, so you're going to be just using the pose, and then you can deal with controlling the camera to make sure that any type of jerkiness is masked anyway. So I think this method is worth the little bit of awkwardness. So basically we're going to grab the enter and exit from, and we're just going to copy and paste those right into our folder. So we're basically just going to take advantage of all the animations Bethesda's already done to get characters into various positions and use those. Now, for those of you who have animation experience, you'll be able to take these, you'll be able to actually create an appropriate animation for those enter and exit and export those. Again, I'll cover exporting animations in a future video from 3D Studio Max. That information is available by a tutorial series by the Rizzler, which I've talked about in the past for doing weapons, and he covers a lot of stuff about exporting animations, and that's basically, I'm just going to copy the information that he provides, but just do it in my own way, for better or for worse. So those of you who like learning the way I teach, I'll have that for you eventually. Otherwise, the Rizzler already has that available on a YouTube series. Right now, you can go check that out. Okay, so now you're going to have in here, you should have 3 animations in your custom folder. So now let's head back into the creation kit and let's start setting this stuff up. So the next thing we need to do is we got to set up a keyword, which is going to let us tell the furniture which animation to play. So we're going to go into miscellaneous and keyword, and we're going to just create ourselves a new keyword. And as I always recommend, make sure you use your prefix. And then we're going to do this. This is totally these names of forms. So whenever you're naming something, it doesn't really matter other than for your own organization. There's no special handling based on what the editor ID is. The game doesn't worry about that. In fact, the game ignores these for 90% of things and only looks at this form ID. So these names are only for your convenience. But what I recommend is to follow Bethesda's logic, which is to start everything that triggers an animation on furniture, is to start it with animfern. And that way, you know, those are the ones you can add to furniture to trigger your set of animations. So in our case, we're going to name this drink loop. We'll just go ahead and hit OK. And that's all we have to do with the keyword. It's that simple. So next we have to do something, we have to set up something called the subgraph. And this is complicated stuff, but effectively what we're doing is we're telling the skeleton, so like the human skeleton, the human race, we're telling them that, hey, we've got a new animation for you and you need to know where the files are. So we're going to go and I'm just filtering for this to avoid a spam of things. Actually, and I should have filtered for human. But if you're doing stuff that's not human, you wouldn't do exactly these steps. You would duplicate something else instead. But for the most of us, I think we're going to be doing human animations, especially if you're using the library of animations we provided or most of the ones from Bethesda, and you want settlers to use them, then in this case, the best one to duplicate is this. And what we're basically doing is we're duplicating a record that Bethesda created that has the same skeleton we're working with, and then we're going to edit our duplication. So we're going to duplicate this human race subgraph data. So we're going to hit duplicate here, and then we're going to rename this to, we're going to add our prefix in front of it. and we'll just leave the name. That's fine. That's that's for anybody who's who understands the background behind this subgraph stuff. This name will make sense. If you wanted to rename it like animation additions, you could do that. Whatever makes sense to you, so you know you'll find it in the future. I just always remember to search for my prefix under race, and that's where I go to edit this information. And you can use this same record in the future. So if you decide to add multiple animations, you only need one subgraph record, and you can add all of your animations to that. That's pretty important. And just like we created this custom directory for each animation, you'll also need a new keyword for each animation. So again, keep that in mind. All right, so now let's open up this subgraph data. And the first thing we're going to do, it should start you on the subgraph data tab. I could be wrong about that. It might start you on general. It might be that because before I recorded this video, I was on subgraph data. But anyway, go to subgraph data if you're not there already. And under template right here, the second drop-down box, you're going to change that to additive. And that will allow you to add information right here. And so basically what we're saying is all of our records here that we're defining should add on to the skeleton that they're tied to. And so we're not going to look at all these other tabs, but Bethesda already did the hard work for us and set all these up so that this information will get added to the human lookup. And you can see that part of that is from this over here. And just an FYI, human does apply to the ghouls that you control settlers, not feral ghouls, but the general ghouls. They're just human skeletons with a different skin on them. So they work effectively the same way. Even though we based this off of the human race subgraph data and there is a separate ghoul race, you don't have to worry about that. Okay, so the next step here is we are going to right click right here and we're going to hit new. This is going to bring up this funky window here. And here is one of those points where it's pretty instrumental that you have all of your Fallout 4 stuff extracted. Like I said, recommend doing it on a separate drive, but if you did it within your Fallout 4 directory, that's fine as well, but you're going to browse to one of those. And so I like to browse to everything under my unpacked directory. I just think it keeps it cleaner. I don't have to worry about messing with my main directory or having a mod overwrite things, because there's a lot of mods who do loose files, which is going to be very important for one of the steps we're going to come up to of one of the problems with that, and I'll show you how to deal with that. But again, one of the benefits of working out of this unpacked directory is we don't have to worry about mods overwriting files that we're expecting to be the vanilla ones. So we're going to go under meshes, actors, and again, I should have wrote down all these directories. I did here. Okay, then we're going to go to actors, character, behaviors, and then we're going to find furniture behavior.htx. Now, a couple of things here. There are a couple different versions of furniture behavior, and they act very similarly. But the difference between behavior and no mirror, it has to do with when the NPC enters from different directions, which if you followed my furniture tutorial, I showed you those little yellow dots. Now you can check in these boxes to add or remove those. The no mirror behavior basically implies that you're setting up extra enter to and exit to based on the side that they're entering and exiting from. So it's going to be pretty rare that you actually use the no mirror. Now the zero blend, I'm not familiar with how it works, but I would say for the sake of anybody who's watching this tutorial to learn this, you're going to always use furniture behavior when creating the furniture animation uses. So we're going to click on that, furniture behavior. Then under role, we're going to change it to furniture. Then under target keywords, we're going to hit new, and we're going to find that new keyword we just created. And here we go, and for a drink lube. And then lastly, we're going to set up an animation path. Now, one of the things to note here is if you wanted, you could also set up an actor keyword, and then it would be so that the animation would only play if that actor had the keyword. And you can add keywords to actors at runtime. Now, for those of you who don't know scripting, or maybe this is too much for you, don't worry about this. We're not going to need that for this. I just want to give that piece of information out, is that this can be a way to control when somebody uses a particular animation outside of this. So you can do tricky things like at runtime change which animation they're using by changing the keywords on the actor and having multiple of these additive graphs set up with the same target keyword but different actor keywords, if that makes any sense. So there's some really cool stuff you could do with this. But for those of you who are just trying to follow this along, ignore everything I just said about that actor things. Just set up your target keyword just like I have it here. And then the last step is to set up an animation path. And this is basically just going to point to that folder that we set up under the let's see, where did we put that? Meshes, actors, character, animations, and then our custom folder. So just go to there and hit OK. And now your subgraph is done. You can go ahead and hit OK and save your plugin. So that is set up and ready to go. Now, the saving the plugin right here is important because one of the steps we're going to have to do ahead here is going to require that all this information is locked and loaded. So One of the things that's a problem with mods doing loose files, and it's one of my pet peeves, is that if it does it on a machine that you're developing on, you're going to run into a lot of random little issues down the road, like having to clean up anim text data files. So these special files that we need that kind of tie together information further. I don't understand fully how it works. It has to do with pointing different file names together, but there are these little text files that you have to have generated that make all this stuff work. They make all this magic happen. They combine with the subgraph data and the animation files. It's very easy to generate them. The problem is it's hard to know which files it's going to generate, and you don't want to accidentally grab those files from a different mod. So the files are generated with names that are they're automatically generated based on a hash. So they're probably based on your file name. So it's not like you can accidentally include the wrong ones that would affect your plugin. But if you included somebody else's mod's text files for this step, then your mod would have a natural conflict with their mod if they updated it. So it's something to be aware of. But basically, like, I have my Let's Play on this computer, and it has hundreds of mods installed, and there are a few of them that have their anim text data loose. And so when I came in here, I actually had this. And you might have this too. You might have a folder called anim text data underneath your meshes folder. If you do, rename it to something else. So I had it before, I renamed it back up, then I did my Let's Play, and now I'm going to name this -LP. But if we look in these, there's just a whole bunch of like random text files, and these come from various mods that did loose files. Shame on you guys for doing that. So if you're watching this and you're a mod author and you did loose files, get them in a BA2, damn it. But we're going to go ahead and rename this. So do the same. And then you'll want to unrename this back to anim text data before you start playing with your game again, because you'll probably have broken some of your mod's animations. All right, so the reason we want to do this is so that we know when we do the next step, anything in this anim text data folder will be for our mod. So what we need to do next is we're going to go into the Fallout 4 folder. So we're going to go back to Fallout 4 here. And then there's a little cool trick here. If you know how to run the command line from here, go ahead and do that however you want. But there's a really cool trick here. You can just click up here and just type in CMD, and it will bring up a command line. Now, I actually have one that has the command already typed in, so I'm going to use that one instead. But you're basically going to run this little command, and hopefully I remember to put it in the description so you guys don't have to try and read my screen here, but I will say it aloud in case for some reason I forget. It is creationkit.exe space, and then a dash, and then generate anim info, all is one word, so GENERATEANIM then a colon, then the full name of your ESP file. And this is why you had to save it, because you had to create your plugin. So if you created a new plugin from scratch, make sure you saved it and use the name there. So in my case, it's 101testplugin.esp. And the .esp is important because if you decided to make an ESL file or an ASM file, you need to use that instead. Then you're going to do space and then ./data. And then space ./data again. So that command, and the only part, so it's the same for everybody. You just change your plugin name after the generate anim info colon, and then you just push enter. And what's going to happen here is another copy of the creation kit is going to run. And we're basically going to wait for that to pop up, and it's going to do some stuff in the background. And when it finishes, it will close itself, and then the animation files will be completed. So I'm actually going to just talk while this runs so you guys can get a feel for how long this takes. And every time you add additional animations to your plugin or make changes to the way this is set up, I recommend you delete all of your previous anim text data files and go ahead and run this again, just to make sure you always have the latest information and that your players end up with the same stuff as you have. And what we're going to end up doing here to make sure that our stuff stays out of the path and that it's not in the way of our Let's Play or that we don't mix up our mods is each time we generate these files, we're going to just put them right into a BA2 file for our mod and then let the game run them off of that. That way we don't have to worry about mixing ours up with other people's that are loose or with mixing them up for our own mods. So my recommendation is every time you generate them for a mod, immediately go put them in that mod's BA2 and then delete them, and that way you've got a clean anim text data or no anim text data folder in your working directory. So mod authors who are fortunate enough to have a machine that doesn't have their main game in, that the one that they're playing with a bunch of loose files from various mods, you could maybe leave them. But again, I still wouldn't recommend that, because if you decide to do multiple plugins with animations, you're going to want to make sure that you can separate out that anim text data. So we're going to head back into data and then meshes. and you'll see we now have an anim text data folder. Now it generates the same number of folders every time, even though for the most part you will only generate probably 4 files usually are what I found with the animations from the furniture. And so obviously with this many folders, it's going to be, there's more folders than the files that it's actually generating. But there's an easy way to deal with this without having to go into each of these folders and finding the files. So what we're going to do is we're going to launch Archive 2. And actually we're going to go right into our data and find our 101 test plugin. And we're going to, because I've already created an archive for this, and we're going to go ahead and just use Archive 2 and do this way. So we're going to go to Archive and hit Add Folder. And we're going to just go into, and you can see I've already navigated to it. We're going to go to our Fallout 4 Data Meshes folder, and we're going to just go to, because we did Add Folder, we can just go to Anim Text Data and hit Select Folder. And you can see it will find all of the text files and only add those and skip all those empty directories. So now we've got our 4 files here, and then we'll just save this. And now we go back into our meshes, and we're going to just delete this anim text data folder. And now for the sake of my Let's Play, I will rename this back so that all of the community ones are there and available for my game to play with again. So that's the process I recommend you do every single time. Just get used to having a main.ba2 right away. If you don't know how to do this, check out my tools tutorials. They'll show you how to set this up, show you how to archive. In fact, I believe I have a tutorial called Archiving with BA2 files, and it'll walk you through all this stuff. But then each time you regenerate these, just come into your archive, delete any of these text files you find, and then just repeat the process of adding them in here. And one of the cool things also with Archive 2 is you don't actually even have to go to Archive Add Folder. You can actually just drag and drop. One of the other things, so we could actually just drag this in, which I'm not going to do right now because I just restored all of the mod added ones. So now our main.ba2 is all set. It's got our animation text files we need. So the last step now is to tell our furniture that we want it to use that animation keyword. So again, one of the reasons we're starting with this 101 test plugin is because I don't have to then show you how to set up furniture. That's been covered in previous tutorials. So we're going to take our outhouse bar here that we set up, and we're going to just change out the anim fern keyword. So we can just delete the one that Bethesda used. And one thing to watch out for, as soon as you do that, all those yellow dots will disappear. And we're going to add our new one, and those yellow dots will not reappear. And I haven't figured out a solution to this. If anybody knows, definitely let me know. If you figure it out, that would be pretty cool, because those are very useful for setting up your animation. So another thing to be wary of here is that suddenly we don't have a clear idea of where our NPC is going to be lined up. And that is because the default little marker model is just going to be that blue man sitting. Again, I'll probably, once someone shows me a good way to do it, I'll probably show people how to create custom markers from poses and whatnot, but I don't know how to do that right now. So what I like to do is just in the same way that we used an existing animations exit to stand and enter from stand, I'm going to do the same thing for our marker and use one of the same ones. So we're going to just look up here. We're going to go into the furniture here, and we're going to look up Neil, and we're going to just take advantage of that and use the same marker. So we'll open this up, and you'll see that they have a marker here. So we'll copy this, and then we'll come into marker model, and you just make sure you're in the meshes folder, and then you can just paste that path in and hit open, and that should update this little blue guy. Here we go. So now, just like in our furniture tutorial, again, you need to have gone through that. We can click on our interaction point, and we can reposition this and get it pretty close so that the animation will line up. Now, obviously, this could take some trial and error depending on the animation you use, so be prepared to have to, save your game and then reload and make some tweaks and whatnot, but get it pretty close with whatever marker, and you're done. And then you go ahead and pop in game, and that is it. So I know I talked a long time. It took quite a while to get to this point, but it's really very easy. Once you get used to that workflow, it doesn't take long at all to set up. And the actual thing you'll spend the most time doing is none of the CK work, but actually just picking out the perfect animation for your particular use case. So that's it. That's how you reuse an animation. You've got tons from Bethesda. There's probably thousands from Bethesda built right into the game you can play with. And then we've given you another couple of thousand thanks to Sebo and his hookup through Maximo. So thank you guys. I'm so excited to keep expanding on this series. I don't know when the next one will come out for this particular topic for animation, but if you guys would like to see more or have a particular question, definitely post those below. I'm going to start following user feedback often. So if people have particular topics they want me to cover, those might get a priority. Otherwise, we're going to just bounce between whatever I have in my backlog of things I want to cover in the future. So hopefully there are no more interruptions to Bethesda Mod School. I took a break for the holidays and because I just had a lot of stuff stuff going on in life, but for the foreseeable future, this should be a regular weekly series once again. Thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned for more information on animation info, and definitely spread the word on these Maximo animations in the Bethesda Mod School resource. I want to share these with the community. Everybody's free to use these for whatever they want, because while we technically created the data, it is a service offered thanks to Adobe, and we just want to see the Fallout 4 mod community improve. We want to see more cool stuff coming out of mods and machinima related to Fallout 4.